SensorTracks. Today I'm going to cover how to pull SensorTracks data into Power BI. So this is going to be a pretty simple example, but it'll get you started on how to pull in this data. So we open up Power BI and we hit Get Data. And what we're going to do is create and start with a blank one. So we're going to start with a blank query. And what we're going to do is do a web request and turn that into a JSON document. So I'm going to go to the advanced editor here. Okay, source. All right, so we're going to turn this into a JSON document from a web contents request. Okay, and then in here we have to put the URL of the data that we want. So I'm going to go over to the SensorTracks API documentation and grab just this analytics query here. So a sample production query, which gives us 10 records from the production data source inside of SensorTracks. It does have a date on it. So the documentation has, some old examples. So it's from 2019. So I'm going to update that for this week. So it's 2022-01. Today's the 13th. I'll just put in the 10th. Okay. So the other part of this is we have to put in our API key. So you can get your API key inside of SensorTracks. There is documentation on how to do that right here, where it's at. So you just log in, look at your profile, generate your key. You do have to have access rights to be able to generate the key, and then you also have to have the correct rights to be able to access the data that you want. So to do this, and this is probably the most typing of this whole process, we have to put in some headers. So we actually have to set the authorization header ourselves. Okay. Authorization equals, hopefully I spelled that right. And then I am throwing in here an API key that will be changed. So there we go. That's it. Pretty easy. And then when I hit OK or done down here, it will, actually it didn't. Header is an valid option. Typing issues. It's headers. Sorry. All right. There we go. It's going to ask you to edit your credentials. It always does this. I don't know why. And then it did the request, and now I have my data. So I'm going to change my data source here because I want to go after a different server that has more current data on it. So I'm going to go against our development server. So once I do that, we see that now we have 257 rows. I only took 10. So right here you can see take 10. So I only took 10 records. So when we look at this list, it's only 10 rather than 257. You can modify that if you want. So let's say I do want 100 or 1,000. I can take them all. And then when I go into the list here, it will show all 257 of them. Okay. So then the next thing we have to do is we actually have to convert this into a table. And then we're going to say convert to table. Okay. So it's going to convert that for us. It puts it into a single column like this. And then we can expand that out. If you want to, you can change the name of this right here. If you don't want to call it column 1, you can rename it to production data. Okay, just adds another step over here. All right. And then now what we can do is click on this button, which allows us to expand out all of the different data points that we have. There's a lot of data here, and it's up to you if you want to take it all or not. Might as well take it all. Okay. There's a lot of internal things that have been selected as well as data that you might want. So production dates and company ID and all of that kind of stuff are all here. The other thing that's here at the end is interesting information you might want. So things like shifts, machine and cell information. So like let's say I want to include the shift name here, I can do that. So that expands out into shift name. This one can expand out into the machine name. This one can do the department, facility, part numbers, that kind of stuff. And all of this was essentially provided in the query that we had that we sent to SensorTracks. So now we have all of this wonderful data, okay, that we can hit close and apply, and it's going to return it to Power BI. It's going to suck in all of this data, okay, and then it'll show up in my fields over here. And then I can just start building out reports. So the other thing that you can do is when you're getting the data, you can script this. So you saw in there that we had a last updated date. This data can be refreshed automatically from the cloud in Power BI. Our suggestion is to just do it every couple hours and refresh the information, and you're just creating a timestamp inside of the script that's provided to the last updated parameter, and then it just keeps getting you more and more information whenever you need it. Okay, so we can search through here for things like cell name, right? So let's say we're going to create a table of values. Like how many products have been created on each line over the course of this time. So let's put in total. And we want total quantity, which is the total good quantity that has been produced. Let's see what our settings on here. Okay. All right, those are individual numbers. The other thing that we could do when we got the data was we could convert all of this into the correct data formats. There's actually a tool inside of Power BI that will guess what your types are. Detect data type right here under transform. Okay. So if we go back, close and apply again, it's going to refresh our data and our metadata here. It thought, these totals were strings instead of integers. And now, okay, we have all this data. And then we can summarize it. So this is all the stuff we made since the 10th. And today is the 13th. So pretty simple. And then you can use the rest of, Power BI tools to be able to do that stuff. And you can make a much more robust solution by, again, doing scripting inside of the Power BI tool that actually gets the data. Today we covered exactly how to pull data from SensorTracks into Power BI.